Starting with school, I have to tell you, not one of Christchurch Boys High School most illustrious pupils. In fact, he got a reputation as being a bit of a troublemaker, some of these petty tyrants and dictators, one of whom was rather fond of the alcohol, and the fumes that would be across Form 4 got a bit tiring for the classmates of Rewi. One morning he arrived at school with half a dozen empty beer bottles, put them in a waste paper basket, put a newspaper on top of that. Master in full flight whipped the paper off the waste paper basket. An immediate roar of laughter from all the classmates because the drunk had been revealed what he was. So I think at early stage Rewi had a pretty healthy disrespect for authority and hierarchy. World War I you've heard about, where I think for the first time in his life Rewi was confronted with what it was to be a second-class citizen when he saw what had happened to Indians, Chinese. A pithy remark to my mother about what he felt about the British forces fighting in France. Badly fed, badly led. As you've heard, it was a farming failure outside Wanganui, after which he went off to China. Told me that he would put out something like 30 fires a day in those days in Shanghai. A book Rewi gave to me was written by a diplomat under an assumed name. It's called Shanghai, Paradise of Adventurers, about Shanghai in the 1930s. The entire foreign residency lived off tip, in hotels, restaurants or wherever. They never paid, they just signed a chit and that was it. Rewi met all sorts of interesting people. Hemingway he met up with in Shanghai in the 1930s. An extraordinary time, but indelible in what impression it left on Rewi in terms of what you've heard about. The appalling factory conditions, the child abuse and so on. Then later, of course, the flood and famine relief. And then for what Rewi seemed to him and what he said to us was some of his best years in Sandan, between about 43 up to 47, 48. I think the main thing there was the extraordinary empathy he had with the ordinary Chinese people. As far as the family was concerned, I think Rewi's major contribution was what he did for the ordinary Chinese people. It said to me later on, actually, when I was in China in '82, that his dictum really was serve the people, and that any government, wherever it is, once it loses sight of that fundamental dictum, will soon be in trouble, sooner or later, anyway. One thing you need to know about Rewi was the profound influence of his mother. Next time you look at a $10 note, you'll see one of her very best friends, Kate Shepherd. In fact, Kate lived at the old family home in Riccarton. A marvellous partnership on the Votes for Women in 1893. Clara, as she was, had an amazing affinity, empathy, understanding of people. People just came. They were always there with her. And Rewi seemed to do this as well with people. I remember thousands of people that would visit Rewi, the old Anna Louise Strong home, former ambassadorial residence of Count Ciano. Rewi would say, come and sit down, haven't seen you for a while. It's almost as if people were just simply coming home. That's how he could handle people. Wonderful empathy. Rewi, however, was quite strict in some ways. He had a very strong work ethic, very industrious, which I think came from a pretty strict kind of family. And for Rewi, he was just one of several in that family who did remarkable things, formidable talents, all of them in their different ways. He's been a remarkable contributor, as you've heard, to the ongoing development of our relations with China. Before I finish, could I just say a word about that? 1972, Norman Kirk's opening relations with China. You need to know that initially Norman Kirk was not sure about the timing of that initiative after the vote went through in the United Nations General Assembly a year earlier. With persuasion from both Frank Corner, senior diplomat, and also the Australians, he did, however, decide to make a move. Norman was interesting in the sense, and we talked to him about this before he became Prime Minister, he had a sense of design of what he wanted to see in New Zealand's relations with East Asia. A structure, a framework, and a man of some considerable vision, who died unfortunately all too early. The Asian vision is something that I think both of these figures, very different of course, Rewi and Norman Kirk, had, and that they thought about the next generation. Listen, learn, maintain your curiosity, a sense of grace, I would have thought, to ordinary people and what they have to offer. Now, as I said, Rewi didn't stand too much on ceremony. I'll end with a short anecdote. I think there was some rather obsequious diplomat that was paying homage to Rewi at some important function. After all this had finished, Rewi simply turned to him and said, "Up yours too, Squire."